Just by way of introduction, the Baal HaTanya in the 5th chapter speaks about what might be the apex of a human aspiration in this world, and that is dveikus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And it's very interesting that the Baal HaTanya speaks about studying halacha in depth as the means, as the vehicle to achieve dveikus. And he gives a number of examples in that chapter of studying halacha. And it's fascinating. All the examples he gives are about monetary law. What if Ruvain claims from Shimon, and Shimon has a migud, and Ruvain has a chazaka, and so forth and so on? Studying those complicated laws, says the Baal HaTanya, is the most guaranteed method of achieving dveikus in Hashem. It's an amazing thing. The Torah is made up of so many different dimensions and parts, and yet dafka, this aspect of the Torah somehow gives us the ability to know God. Rabbeinu Yonah, in his introduction to Masechta Avos, on the famous Mishnah of Mesunim Badin, says that by studying din, mishpatim, the laws that govern interpersonal relations, we get to know Hashem. It's the method of Yedias Hashem. In the last couple of years, very recently, a number of Sfarim have been published on topics related to business ethics, interpersonal relations. I've looked at a bunch of them, and in the last few weeks I've started studying them. I don't know exactly what time I have to do that. The cold keeps me busy. But when I find a few minutes here and there, and it's absolutely fascinating, very complicated. We're going to try to give an introduction today to the concept of responsibility, of nezikin, what's called in secular law tort law, and that is Adam Muad Liolam. Now, my favorite sefer that's been, again, recently published, my son in Eretz Yisrael got me a copy, it's called Toras Chashashuai. It's just a wonderful sefer, just the way it's organized. He gives you the cases, and they're all real, true cases that came up in Eretz Yisrael. And how the Dayanim, how the judges dealt with them. A lot of this sefer is based, I'll just mention from the outset, on the Piskei Dinim of Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein, Shlita, who's married to Rav Elyashiv's daughter. And he's done an amazing amount of research on this area of halacha, morality, ethics, business law. And he especially is fond of quoting a sefer called Mishpatei Torah by Rav Tzvi Spitz. And I've just become aware of the fact that the first volume of Mishpatei Torah has been translated into English by a good friend of mine, Yaakov Blinder. So if you ever get a chance, see if you can get a hold of that sefer. Without further ado, Linyanenu. Adam Muad Liolam. The first case that I want to address today, again, Maisa Shahaya, of a family living in Meron up in the north. That's what people flock to on what day of the calendar year, the Hebrew calendar year? Lag BaOmer. I don't know if you've ever been. I never encourage my students to go. It's a wild scene over there. But be it as it may, many people come up to that area about Lag BaOmer time. And certainly if you own a dira, a flat in that area, you want to rent it out and make some Canadian dollars, or shkolim, I guess. And so this elderly woman didn't have much in her bank account. This is one way she was able to collect some funds for herself. Every year, year in and year out, she would rent out her apartment, her flat in Meron. And in this particular year, she had a chicken which she put in the freezer. And it wasn't just a chicken. But again, you and I would have seen it. It was a chicken. A nice gesunte chicken. The family rented the apartment. And accidentally, on one particular day when they went out on a tiyul somewhere in the north, the freezer, the door to the freezer was left slightly ajar. As a result, unbeknown to the family, the chicken inside the freezer got a little bit spoiled. That's an understatement, because when they came back that evening to the flat, they opened the door, they couldn't even enter into the house. The smell, the stench was so strong, only the father ventured in, and he said, I'll take care of this problem. You know, it's like Bernstein's Bears, I could do it. And he goes in, and he goes into the freezer, and sure enough, he finds this verstunken Ov. And what does he do with it? Without thinking twice, without blinking, he throws it into the, again, I don't know which garbage, I guess into the compost, I suppose. In Israel, we're not so makpid on this. You know, he wasn't Canadian. But be that as it may, he felt very guilty about the fact that they had left open the fridge, the freezer, and they, in a sense, were gorem. They were the cause for the loss of the chicken. And so they went out and bought another chicken to replace this one. A fair replacement, at least that was what it looked at on the surface of it. But unfortunately, it wasn't really a very good replacement. Because what happened is, after they settled with a Balat HaBayit, and they paid their fees, they're on their way, they get a frantic phone call from her on the cell phone, and guess what? They are accused of stealing $10,000. This woman couldn't find a better place to hide her money except in a chicken. Now, I know everyone has their own way of hiding money. Some people put it in a bank. Other people don't go to banks. So they find other ways. I know one family where if you open up the fridge, when you look at a milk container, just be careful. It's worth a lot more than you think. In any event, as a result, she starts accusing them of theft, which of course they weren't guilty of at all. They didn't pocket the money. But they were, in effect, guilty of damages, of what we call mazik. And here we enter into the entire issue of mazik, of somebody who damages someone, and he's liable. A man is liable for his actions. In fact, the Yerushalmi, Tosfos quotes the Yerushalmi, says that a man's liable for his actions if he destroys something, even in his sleep. Bein er, bein yoshen. Very fascinating. Certainly a person is not liable in a conscious, deliberate way for any kind of damages that he incurs to someone when he's asleep, but yet, Adam muad, and what's the key word? Liolam. Liolam, there's no exception. Or is there an exception? And here we enter into a major controversy, which perhaps is the most central issue in all of damage law in halakha. And I don't know, frankly, if there's any controversy of this sort in other legal systems. Maybe the lawyers here, if there are any lawyers here, will help me out. Bobby, anything? Okay, you'll fill it in for me. You know, I give a shiur once a week in Shari Shamayim. So I don't know if you know Ralph Levine, who comes to the shiur. So Ralph is a lawyer, and I always ask him to help me out with the legal terminology. But then there's one doctor who sits in the back, and every time I turn to Ralph for help, he says, Rabbi, that's billable hours. and he's going to charge. I said, Ralph is not going to charge me. In any event, in halacha, what's the extent to which we use the word liolam in this context of adam muad liolam? For example, supposing a person is really guiltless, I would say he's not even a shogeg. He's guiltless in an even more extreme category. What's more extreme than shogeg? If you have mazid shogeg, what's the other extreme? Ones. What about a person who's literally ones? Now, ones fits into many different categories. You can have an ones because someone puts a gun to your head. You can even have a rape situation, Rahman al-Islam, where you're totally passive. You didn't even do an action at all. That's called ones. That's called v'lanara lo sasadova. But what about an ones of the sort where there's absolutely no negligence? Now again, I'm not sure that there was no negligence here. Well, first of all, they left the freezer door open. That wasn't too smart. Secondly, I'm not sure, well, that's an interesting question. Should he have cut open, dissected the chicken? That wouldn't have been a pleasant operation. And found out maybe there's something hidden inside the innards of the chicken. I don't know. But let's grant for the time being, as we get into the sugya, that this really is a case of onus. It's a case which is lacking any element of negligence whatsoever. What's the Hebrew word for negligence, the halakhic term? Pshia. Pshia becomes very relevant in what context? Shomrim. For example, if I accept upon myself responsibility to safeguard your object, then if I am poshea, if I'm guilty of some negligence, I left the door unlocked and the robbers came in and stole your object, that's called a pshia hamachayeves, and that generates a chiyuv, an obligation to pay compensation. That's called shomrin. But certainly a shomer would not be responsible for an onus situation when he applied and he provided the best level of shmira protection possible, and nevertheless the armed robbers came in, or they dug up the karka and they found something that he had safeguarded deep below the ground. Then a shomer would certainly not be chayiv, with the exception of a shoel, but that's a different case, because a shomer is only chayiv for pshia. Not so in the case of Adam Muad Liolam. We're not talking about a situation where you accepted upon yourself responsibility, and you only accepted upon your responsibility up to a certain level. I'll provide the shmira, but if there are circumstances beyond my control, you cannot hold me responsible. Here's a different halacha. Adam Muad Liolam means you are responsible for your actions. And if your action caused someone a loss, and there are many discussions here about driving automobiles, and if you bump into someone, etc., certainly a pedestrian, you can be liable in a court under the halacha of Adam Muad Liolam. A person is responsible for his actions to pay damages. But what is the extent of that responsibility? How far does it go? Does it incorporate even a case where there is zero negligence? It's literally onus in the sense that it's completely mufka, it's devoid of any element of pshia. And here we have a fundamental controversy between Tosfot and the Ramban. Tosfot takes the approach, and we'll see it's based on a Gemara Bava Kama, that there is a limit to Adam Muad Liolam. Adam Muad Liolam shouldn't be taken literally Liolam, ad infinitum, without any exception. And if you take a look at the sugya here, whether it's the sugya in Bava Kama Chavav, or it's the sugya in Chav Zayin Amid Beis, or the sugya in Bava Metzia, or perhaps even the sugya on page 2 in Bava Kama Samach Beis Amid Aleph. In all these cases, there seems to be an element of ones, where pshia, where negligence is completely lacking. So, for example, I think the closest case to ours, the most similar case, is the one on page 2, Bava Kama Daf Samach Beis. Take a look at that. A person literally picked up somebody's safe and threw it out. He threw it into a river. It's gone. So the case came up in front of Rav Ashi, and Rav Ashi said, "What's going on over here? What was lost in the safe?" And it turns out that what was in the safe was not just funds, was not just cash, but there were also precious jewels in the safe. Marganisa Bakaspa. And Rav Ashi raises the question, Mi manchi inshi Marganisa Bakaspa? Does a person actually put these pearls, these type of pearls, into his safe? Olo, or perhaps no. So Tosfos understands, at the outset at least, that the issue is if the nizak, the one who lost the property, sues the mazik and says, you know what was in that safe that you destroyed was jewels to the tune of who knows what, an exorbitant amount of funds. The mazik from his part says, I don't know what's inside the safe. But what does it mean, I don't know what's inside the safe? Does it mean that we have doubts about the truth of the claim of the nizak, the one who's suing you? Did he make up this story? And therefore we don't know? So Rav Ashi says, well, let's see. Does a person usually put these kinds of jewels in a safe? If that's unusual, if that's not something expected, then perhaps we should cast a doubt, some sort of suspicion, on the nizak when he makes that claim that you destroyed my precious jewels in that safe. Says Tosfos, well, if that be the case, if the whole issue about whether jewels are usually found in a safe or not revolves around the trustability, the honesty of the nizak in putting forth this lawsuit, well, the greatest way of clarifying, of bringing evidence in any case of doubt is what? Eidim. So two Eidim will come along and they'll testify that we indeed saw that so-and-so placed inside his safe before you destroyed it these precious jewels. So take a look at Tosfos. He says the following. This again in that same paragraph. Afilu yesh edim shahayabo marganisa. Even if two witnesses would come forward and testify that indeed there were precious jewels inside the safe, it's no longer an issue of relying on the claim of the plaintiff, of what we call the tovea. That's not an issue. We know, based on the testimony of two edim, that indeed the safe had these special jewels inside. Nevertheless, says Tosfos, Mi Boile, Rav Ashi was still vacillating back and forth about this issue. This Shema, perhaps, if we assume that a person doesn't hide his precious pearls inside a safe, Lo iboile la suke adaite. I underline those words. The mazik, the one who destroyed the safe, did not have to entertain the possibility, lahai, this mazik, that there are jewels in the safe. Now wait a minute. This doesn't make any sense. The man literally took the safe with his two hands, picked it up, chucked it down the river. This is a case of what? Mazik. We're not dealing with shmira. If we were talking about an individual who was appointed by the balabayas, by the owner, to safeguard the safe and anything in it, then you could say, lo havile lemeda, lo asakadaite, he didn't think that inside the safe there was such expensive jewels. I understand, because then your criterion is what? What question are you trying to come to an answer to? If we're talking about a shomer, which we're not, okay, let me not confuse you, but had this individual not taken someone's safe and thrown it into the river, but simply he had been called upon as the safeguardian of this safe, then what issue would be relevant? Shia. Okay, so then you say, well, he didn't entertain the idea that there might be possibly these expensive jewels. But here we're not dealing with an issue of shomer. We're dealing with the principle of Adam Muad Liolam. He took the safe and he chucked it in the river. If that be the case, let's apply the principle of what? Adam Muad Liolam. Bain b'mezid, bain b'shogeg. You'll tell me he didn't entertain the possibility that be jewels inside. But so what? Adam Muad Liolam. Says Tosfos, no. Even if we can clarify beyond the shadow of a doubt that these expensive pearls were in the safe and they were lost, nevertheless, perhaps the mazik is exempt. I say perhaps because keep in mind, Rav Ashi was vacillating back and forth. Would a person hide these precious jewels in the safe? Would he not? But assuming he would not, then kevan delo ragil inshi lanuche klal. If it's not at all common in the least that a person would place it inside the safe, therefore he's exempt from payment. V'lo dami l'dinar zav d'liel. The Gemara has an interesting case above on the same daf in Bava Kama Samach Beis, where a person asks someone to safeguard these silver coins. Now, if I ask you to safeguard silver coins, you become what? Shomer. If you accept it upon yourself, a shomer. What level of responsibility does a shomer have? He can't be posher. So let's say you went ahead and you left it open and it was stolen in a way that's pshir. Now, how much do you have to pay? So, of course, if I told you that these dinrim, these coins, were made of silver, you'll pay me back for silver coins. But what happened? In truth, the coins were silver-plated, and inside the plate was gold. I didn't tell you that what you're taking upon yourself are gold coins to watch. I told you they were silver coins. But nevertheless, in truth, they were gold. How much of a claim can I force you to pay? So the Gemara says, I can only force you to pay for silver, not for gold. Why? Because I told you that they were zav. But the Gemara goes ahead and says, I told you they was kesef. But the Gemara says the following. The Gemara says, what happened? What did the shomer do? Did the shomer leave the door open and somebody came in and stole the coins? Or did the shomer deliberately destroy the coins? The Gemara says, if the shomer destroyed the coins, then he will pay for gold coins, even though what he saw with his eye was silver coins, were silver coins. If, on the other hand, he didn't actively destroy it, but he left the door open and somebody stole it, he's a posheah, then he can say, I only accepted myself the responsibility for silver coins. I didn't expect to find gold coins here, and therefore I never accepted upon myself shmira for gold coins. In that case, he only pays for silver, because that's what he was makabel. But what do you see from this Gemara? What's important for our discussion?
If he destroyed it.
Had he destroyed them actively, what would he pay?
Gold.
He would pay the full amount, the gold. Even though in his mind, they were silver. How is that different, asks Tosfos, to the case where I throw out your kasefet, I throw out your safe, and lo and behold, as you claim and you prove your claim, established based on eidim, on witnesses, there were very expensive pearls in the safe. And Tosfos wants to say, well, he never entertained the possibility that he was getting rid of a safe that had pearls in them. Isn't that the exact same thing as the case where a person accepts upon himself shmira to protect what he thinks are silver coins, and he only pays for silver coins unless he destroyed it. But if he actively destroyed it, he pays for gold coins. So Tosfos comes up with a chiluk. That's a distinction. Very, very, what shall I say, sensitive kind of distinction. He says that in the case of a shomer, since I gave it to you as a shmira, you have to entertain the possibility that the object that I'm giving you is worth a lot more than what I told you. Why would I have underestimated the value of the object that I gave you to watch, to safeguard? Why didn't I reveal to you that they were gold coins? What's the psychology here? I was afraid that if I would tell you how much they're worth, you would back out of the deal. You wouldn't accept upon yourself responsibility. So Tosfos says, in that case, he should have had some idea, an inkling, that maybe, just maybe, these coins are worth a lot more than you see at first impression. There is some element, be it very negligible, but nevertheless, it's not negligible. It's significant. And therefore, there is an element of havile lasuke adaite. He should have entertained the possibility that maybe these coins are really worth gold coins. But in the case of a shomer, if he didn't actively destroy the coins, then Kabbalah Shmira, I accepted upon myself achrayus, responsibility. To what level did I accept upon myself responsibility? We spoke about it. We had an agreement. I'm taking silver coins, not gold coins. But if I went in and I destroyed the gold coins, Adam Muad Li'olam kicks in. Says Tosfos, why does Adam Muad Li'olam kick in? Because he should have entertained the possibility that maybe the mafkid, when he gave him these coins and he told him they were silver coins, maybe they're worth a lot more. But in the case of a safe, which he never accepted upon himself shmira, and there was no mafkid who said, well, watch this safe because it has money in it, implying nothing else but money. That didn't happen. He just on his own initiative took the safe and he destroyed it. So there was no psychology here, well, maybe there was more in the safe than what I anticipated. And what did he expect was in the safe? Money, and not pearls. Says Tosfos, in that case, we do not apply the principle of Adam Muad Li'olam. There is at least some sort of case which Adam Muad Li'olam is completely suspended. And he's potter. Why is he potter? Because he never entertained. It was absolutely uncommon, unusual that there should be any sort of jewels inside the box. Who disagrees with Tosfos? The Ramban. The Ramban takes the other extreme. Adam Muad Li'olam. Literally, Bein B'mezid, Bein B'shogeg, Bein B'ones. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. Again, if you ask me, but what about the case where I took upon myself responsibility to watch, to guard your coins, and you told me they were silver coins? Why don't I have to pay you for gold coins? Would the Ramban have a problem with that? No, because that's a case of what? Kabbalah Shmira. In the case of Kabbalah Shmira, I'm only responsible for that which I took upon myself. But if I destroy it, then it doesn't matter if I'm completely honest. There was no element whatsoever of negligence. I have to pay for that. Because Adam Mu'ad Li'olam, you did an act of hezek, and therefore you have to pay for that. The Gemara that tells us that if a person destroys someone's object, in this case it looks like silver coins, he has to pay for gold coins because they were in fact gold, that is proof positive to the Ramban's extreme position that Adam Mu'ad Li'olam, literally you're always chayav. So let's come back to our case of the oath. The man threw out the chicken. Is it a case of shmira or is it a case of mazik? It's a case of mazik. No, what principle should apply? Adam Mu'ad Li'olam. No, but she claims that he has to pay not just for the chicken he threw out, but also for the enormous sum of $10,000 that were hidden inside the chicken. So what's the first issue that we have to address, even before we get to Adam Mu'ad Li'olam? Is she trustworthy? Maybe she's making up the whole story. Nobody saw the 10th. The answer is 2 witnesses came in. Okay, so now we know that the $10,000 were in the chicken. Does he have to pay for the chicken? For sure he has to pay for the chicken. Does he have to pay for the $10,000 in the chicken? Again, it depends. If you're like whom? Like Tosfos, then we always ask the question, was there some element, some shmek, well, I shouldn't use the word shmek in this context, but some element of negligence? Then the answer is, lo havi leila suki adaite. When was the last time, and this would be cool, if you can come home and cut open a chicken and find 10 grand in the chicken, that would be great. But that doesn't happen every muntik and darnishtin. It's very rare. So therefore, lo havi leila suki adaite. Tosfos would say, there's no element of negligence whatsoever. It's pure onus, and you don't have to pay. But the Ramban, what would the Ramban say in this case? The Ramban would say, oh, the Mu'ad Li'olam, literally, straight across the board, without exception. I have one question on the Ramban. The Gemara Bava Metzia has a very fascinating case. It's not on your page here. I'll just tell it to you over Baal Peh. The Gemara wants to know what happens if you accidentally took someone else's cow and you slaughtered it and you served it for dinner that night. What's the case? This is a case of a para she'ula biyad ha'av hamorish. What happened? The father had within his possession, it is on the page? Yeah. Oh, okay, a cow which belonged to someone else. Correct? It was in his possession, but it belonged to someone else. After the father passed on, the Yarshim inherited this cow, and unbeknown to them, they thought it was a cow like all the other possessions, all the other cows. They went ahead and they slaughtered it, thinking it's theirs. And then, guess what happens? We figure out, the Mashil comes in and proves that that was his cow. Once again, the question is, according to the Ramban, should the Yarshim pay for slaughtering the cow and eating it for dinner? They had a nice steak dinner, but should they pay for that? This is the cow on the roof. Oh, nobody's old enough to know what that is. Oh, okay. Okay. So what would you say? What would you say in that case? According to the Ramban says, Adam Mu'ad Li'olam. You literally took a slaughtering knife and you shechted the act. What should be the law in that case? You pay or you don't pay? Everyone.
Hey.
You pay. Adam Mu'ad Li'olam. Ramban takes the extreme view that Adam Mu'ad Li'olam without exception. This is a Maisa Hezek. Tosfos, on the other hand, would say that this is what? Honest. This is honest. Who entertained? Why should he? Again, you might say, well, he should have checked out every single item that his father left over in the Yerusha. But assuming that that's not so for the time being, there's no element of negligence. According to Tosfos, a mazik like a shomer has to have at least some minimum level of negligence. There was no negligence. He thought it was his para. He inherited from his dad. Is therefore he should be part. You know what the Gemara says? He has to pay, listen carefully, Dmei Basar Bizol. What does Dmei Basar Bizol mean? They have, keep in mind that the Yarshim ate the steak, right, for dinner. In fact, they've been eating steak for quite a while now. It's a big cow, right? So the question is, what do they have to pay? So the Gemara says, they don't pay as a mazik. A mazik would pay the full value, the market value of the cow. We're going to subtract a certain chunk from that. We're going to figure out how much they benefited. How much was that cow worth on the, I guess you'd call it the retail value? No. Which one is the less? Wholesale value, right? On the wholesale market. That's called Dmei Basar B'Zol. Rashi says it's about 2/3 the price of the retail as it goes on the market. A mazik will pay for the full value of the damim that were lost over here. How much would you sell it? How much did I buy it for? You pay me back that because you destroyed it. But in the case where the person had no negligence whatsoever, he thought that he inherited this cow from his father and he shechted it, he doesn't pay as a mazik, he pays Dmei Basar B'Zol. He gets away, they slash the fee by 1/3. This Gemara would prove whom? Tosfos or the Ramban? Is this again, what do you say?
Tosfos.
Why Tosfos, Eli?
Because Ramban says Adam B'Vayla would be full value.
Correct, he should pay the full value. From the fact that the Gemara says he pays Dmei Basar B'Zol, he doesn't pay as a mazik, it indicates that he's not paying for the hezek, but rather for the hana, for the benefit that he got. Oh, he pays for the benefit, that's called Dmei Basar B'Zol. That's only 2/3 its value. What happened to the Chiv Mazik? This, to me, would be a tremendous proof to Tosfos Shita that Adam Mu'ud Li'olam is not to be taken in the extreme sense. It's not always the case. You've got to have some element of negligence. If it's an ones, I assume this was my cow and I shechted it. Why should I pay for that? Okay, I had hana. I have to pay you for benefits that you gave me. It's like if you go down to my field and you plant and plow my field, I have to pay you some sort of a compensation for your work, for the benefits that I got. That itself is a sugya bava kama. What would the Ramban do with this sugya of Yarshim who slaughtered a cow? Anybody have any idea how to defend the Ramban? I like to defend the Ramban. Maybe Yarshim have a different halacha? Is that what you want to say, perhaps? A new takana on behalf of Yarshim? Maybe? The Ramban would be very hard-pressed to figure out why they're not chayiv under the law of Adam Mu'ud Li'olam. However, there is one case where the Ramban allows you, again, it's not a shomer as we discussed before, but a mazik, allows you to get off the hook, and you don't have to pay. And that's called Iyu the Azik Anafshi. Meaning, in every case of hezek, there are always two sides. There are always two parties. There's the mazik and the nizak. Supposing the mazik claims onus, well, that's not going to go very far according to the Ramban. But supposing the mazik says, you know why I'm an onus? You know why I have no element at all of negligence? Because it was the nizak who exposed himself to that danger. He should have been more careful in protecting himself. So if that be the case, says the Ramban, it's no longer a question of mazik. It's a question also, let's analyze the situation of the nizak, the one who suffered the loss. Was he perhaps, to some extent, negligent for exposing his possessions to this possible danger? So for example, if you were driving an automobile and you accidentally hit a pedestrian, again, if you jumped a red light, that's one thing. That's a pure Adam Mu'ud. In fact, if you killed someone, Rahman al-Itzlan, in such a case, they wouldn't even give you the option of going to the mikla because you're karv l'mezid. But let's say you were a nice bubala, you followed all the laws and you obeyed all the rules, but somebody jaywalked in the middle of the street. He had no right to do that. In such a case, even though you ran into him, the Ramban would say, Iyu di azak anafshe. He, the nizak, brought the hezek upon himself. Is it possible, if yes? Sorry?
That in itself is a qualification on Adam Mu'ud Li'olam.
Correct. But it's a qualification on Adam Mu'ud Li'olam when there's another Mu'ud. So I'm just trying to present to you that the situation, even within the context of the Ramban, is not so simple. For example, in the case of the chicken, could the Ramban come to the same conclusion that we presented in the light of Tosfos? We said, according to Tosfos, the man never entertained when he threw out the chicken that there would be $10,000 hidden inside the chicken. That didn't enter his mind. Lo asik adaite. For the Ramban, that's not going to alleviate him of paying damages under the law of Mazak because other Muliolim. But what perhaps factor could be introduced over here?
She was responsible.
Yeah, maybe she was responsible. Maybe she should have told him, hey, don't go near this freezer. Because she didn't want to do that, because, that would already perhaps be mafat to him, who might attempt him.
If she should have had a savings account, not a chicken account.
Excellent. Halach l'maisa, how do we pass? Adam Muliolim. Does that require some element of negligence, as Tosfos says, or no? Adam Muliolim, as the Ramban maintains, even in the most extreme situation of onus. Truth be told, it's unclear. This fundamental issue, which really connects so much of the Zikim in the Halach and the Poskim, is unclear. Now, what happens when you have a lawsuit against someone in Halacha, and you claim, of course, that he owes you damages? He claims, based on the sheet of Tosfos, that these were circumstances that he couldn't be held guilty of, and therefore he doesn't want to pay. Can we force him to pay based on the Ramban? What would you say about that? Hamotzi mechavel v'araya. This is the case which appears again over and over in Shas. Kimli dedina hachi. The defendant, in this case the mazik, could claim, I know, again in inverted commas, I know that the halacha is like Tosfos against the Ramban. By the way, tomorrow he's going to find a different issue and he'll hold like the Ramban. He's not consistent. But in this particular case, he waves the banner of Tosfos. Tosfos says, I'm an onus. I didn't entertain the possibility that there was money stashed in the oath, and therefore I'm completely onus. I don't have to pay. So the plaintiff, the Nizak, says, well, I know the halacha is like the Ramban. Again, tomorrow he's going to change his tune in a different issue. But he claims, I know the halacha is like Ramban or the Muliolim. So what are the Dayanim going to do in such a case? When the halacha itself is not clear. There's a Machaber, there's a Ramah, the Ramah quotes the name of Yesh Omrim, there's a Shach. It gets very, very complicated. So the Gemara says that the defendant always has the right to say, I know the halacha is like so-and-so. Again, if it's a bona fide Rishon that's brought down in Poskim, he can say, I know it. Why? Hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya. But you see, hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya, which means, I guess possession is 9/10 of the law, that doesn't always work. That's not so simple. For example, there's a concept called tfisa. Tfisa means if I know the law's with me, and I know you owe me money, and you're holding on to my money, then if I grab it, now I have maintained possession of it. That's called avid inish dina lenafshe. That's a whole different sugya. I took the law into my hands, and I got my money back, and now I'm holding on to it, and it's mine. I know it's mine. I know you owe me this money. And then you, who were the defendant a minute ago, now become the plaintiff, and you claim, give me back my money. In such a case, you're going to say, well, that money is mine because I hold like Tosfos. And the person who before was the plaintiff is now the defendant holding on to your money is going to say, no, I'm not paying you back this money. I'm not returning it to you. I know the halacha is like the Ramban. It becomes what you call a seesaw. Ping pong. So that's a complicated business. Okay, I just want to spend a few minutes before we take questions and present the second question and see if we can make any connection between the second question and the first. How many of you got this page? I tried to give it out, called Ganav Rechev V'Motzavotiv. You got that? Okay. So again, I didn't have time to type it into my computer, so you got it on that copy. This comes from the Sefer Torascha Shashuai, and it was an actual case. A man is tempted to steal a very expensive car. And guess what? He did a lot more than just steal a car. First, he broke down the door. I don't know if it was the windshield, the door, it's unclear to me. In order to get access to the car. Then he was able to start it. And then what does he notice in the back seat? A child, a baby. A baby who's turning blue. A baby who's losing breathing. And this man, he only meant to be a thief. He didn't realize what was at stake over here. The baby was accidentally locked in the car. And by the way, as strange as that sounds to you, Maisim Shayu Kachayu. There have been cases like that. I don't know how, hopefully not here in Toronto, but in other parts of the world, including parts of the world that I come from. I don't mean Brooklyn. And yes, the baby was left in the back seat. What did he do? You know, you always have this moment of truth in your life. You're at a Parshas Drachim. So he decided he's got to overcome all his bad midos, and he drives to, let's say, doesn't say which hospital, say Shari Tzedek Hospital. I'm a big fan. So he comes to Shari Tzedek Hospital, they rush the baby into the emergency, and guess what? They save the baby's life. The man comes back, and you'll read it on the page. It's a fascinating case. The police call the parents in. Don't go into the issue about the parents here. They also had tsaras here, but in any event, they are absolutely thrilled. And so this man saved their baby. They knew very well that he was a thief, but he saved their baby's life. So when he broke down the door of the car, in effect, he was saving the baby's life, or at least that was the beginning of the process of saving the baby's life. And lo and behold, the father of the baby, when he realizes that the door to his beautiful new car was broken, turns to the thief and he says, "Pay me for damages. You destroyed the door of my car." Now everyone knows that a brand new car, well, even after you drive it once, it goes down in value considerably, but how much more so after its first accident? So I don't know about paying the discrepancy between its value on the market before the man smashed the door and after. That's called grumma b'nezika. That's a whole complicated subject. But at least pay me the amount of money that it will cost me to fix up the car and get it back into working condition. At least that much you should pay me. And of course the thief turns to him and says, "You chutzpah yak, you! I saved your baby's life and you're suing me for damages?" I mean, you can feel the drama in the air. And again, obviously in all these monetary cases, we're more concerned about the baby and its life than we are about the couple $100 to replace the door. But nevertheless, halacha din pruta kidin meya has to confront every situation, even a lawsuit of a couple of cents, if it's a shava pruta. So what does halacha say about this? Who's in the right?
Why can't the thief say, "So pay me for saving the life of the baby"?
That's an interesting question, because I'll tell you, in the case of lo samad al dam riacha, I'm not sure if you can actually sue for that. Now, if he took an actual loss out of pocket,
but there is an Indian,
that's a different thing.
There's an Indian of Adam Zakim Shalom Fund, right? Yeah, right. So I can go, let's say, for instance, my neighbor's away and his fence is broken and he doesn't know, and I can fix his fence and I can ask for the money later.
Correct,
on.
but here he didn't lay out any money. You can ask him to pay you for the employment, for the car. The only thing he lost was stealing the car. I don't think he can claim that. In any event, take a look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin. I am always fascinated. This is on the bottom of your page too. I am absolutely fascinated how the Mishnah that was written 2,000 years ago and just addresses modern issues as they come up. And it's not just the Mishnah. What happens if Ruvain is running after Shimon to kill Shimon, and Levi, of course, as the bystander, is obligated in the mitzvah of defending the nirdaf and killing the rodef, and in doing so, and fulfilling his mitzvah of harigas harodef, and saving the nirdaf, he damages someone's property. So the Mishnah tells us that rodef, shaya rodef achar rodef latzilo, so the rodef is now running after the rodef to save the nirdaf. V'shiver es hakelim, it doesn't matter whose kelim he destroyed. Bein shel rodef, bein shel nirdaf, bein shel kol adam. Even some innocent guy who happened to have his vessels there, but as a result of this pu'ulav, this action of saving the nirdaf, the rodef achar rodef destroyed someone's vessels, Potter, he doesn't have to pay. Think for a moment why that's so. But before we answer that question, I pointed out that the Rambam codifies this halacha, and so does the Shulchan Aruch. The Rambam says, "Misharodav hachar rodef lo shia nirdaf b'shibras hakelim, bein shel rodef, bein shel kol adam poter." Shulchan Aruch echad, "Sharodav hachar rodef lahatzlos hanirdaf b'shibra kelim, bein shel rodef, bein shel kol adam poter." Kidei shelo yavo milimana milahatzlos hanirdaf. Why is it? Again, and this is a question I would address to the Ramban, because the Ramban says, "Adam muad liolam." You literally destroyed someone's kelim, and you don't have to pay. The only exception we found to the Ramban's rule was the case of Shomer Yumakabel Shmira. That's not our case. The second exception to the rule was Iyudi Azik Anafshe. The Nizak was responsible and negligent for leaving his possessions exposed. He left them in the Rosh Hashanah. Somebody goes by, Ein Darkon Shel Bnei Adam Lisboni B'Drachim, and he destroys it. Other than that, the Ramban goes to the extreme. Adam Mud Liolam. Why doesn't the Rodef Achara Rodef Lahatzilos Anirdav? Why doesn't he have to pay for damages? So you could say, as we tried to explain before, in the case of the Yarshim, who inherited a cow thinking it was theirs, maybe there's a new takana for Yarshim, a new takana on behalf of the Maksilim. But I think there's something much more fundamental here. Even the Ramban requires what? Even when the Ramban postulates, Adam Mu'ah, he has to pay for damages. You must assume in every scenario one premise. What is that premise?
Intent.
I need a real brisker lamdan here. Who can tell me? You need what? Say it. I heard you say it. Say it a little louder. Oh, you said.
It's motivation.
Oh, what? Mazid? Mazid?
No.
Adam Mu'ah Liolam. Bein Mazid, Bein Shogeg, according to Ramban, Bein Ba'ones. But what do you need? Let it be Mazid, let it be honest, I couldn't care less. But one thing you definitely need. What do you need?
Intent.
A Maisa has attention you don't need. You're an honest. Circumstances beyond your control. You never dreamt that it was there. The famous case, this happens all the time in dormitory situations, where one person in the middle of the night smashes someone else's eyeglasses. So Adam Mu'ah Liolam, he's got to pay. There was no intention. The Ramban says Adam Mu'ah Liolam Liolam. But what do you need? Even according to the Ramban, a Maisa Hezek. I think what underlies this mission is that if you change the nature of the action, if you convert, you transform the complexion of the act and redefine it, then even the Ramban would agree that you're part. In our context, in the Mishnah that we saw over here in Sanhedrin, do you have the ability to change the nature of the action? Anybody?
Yeah, you're doing a mitzvah.
Mitzvah. And what is that mitzvah in one word?
Friday.
Hatzolah. Mitzvah of Hatzolah. Do they have Hatzolah here in Toronto? Yeah. Oh, good. We have Hatzolah. Hatzolah is a great mitzvah, correct? How do I define your act? There's a famous tshuva of the Chazon Ish about a situation in an Israeli war in which there were a number of soldiers in a bunker, and somebody threw a hand grenade into the bunker, and there was no possibility of preventing certain death. No possibilities, no way. But what was possible was that one soldier would be able to deflect the hand grenade, and more people would be saved than those who would die. In other words, because the hand grenade was coming in a certain angle, many people in the bunker would die. Would it be permissible, and that's what a chayal did in that case, to deflect the hand grenade in such a way that others would die, but the majority of the people would live? Now, offhand, when you think about it and you analyze it, when you deflect a hand grenade in that direction and you change its movement, its pattern, what are you doing?
Killing.
That's an act of killing. That's an act of ritzicha. So does anybody have any doubt in their mind what the Chazon Ish is going to say in this case? Are you allowed halachically to deflect this hand grenade, pushing it as it were on those chayalim who will definitely perish? It's an act of ritzicha. And guess what? The Chazon Ish allows it. Why? It's exactly. He says it's not an act of ritzicha. It's an act of hatzolah. That was just a little icing on the cake. It's not our topic for today. But you see very clearly that you can change the nature of an action from an act of ritzicha to one of hatzolah. In our case, from an act of mazik to an act of hatzolah. Again, it's very complicated. I'm not trying to sell you a bill of goods here. I'm not telling you this is simple. To the extent in which the Rodef Achar Rodef had to be mazik something, there was no other way out. then I could grant you that's an act of Hatzalah. But supposing somewhere within the larger, broader context, he destroyed someone's possessions, would that also make it into an act of Hatzalah? Can I take the definition of Hatzalah and mushroom it and, how should I say, encompass every part of the process? I don't know. These are complicated issues. But if that be the case, let's come full swing back to our discussion at the outset about a person who breaks down the door of the automobile. It's the only way he can get the car moving. And in effect, unbeknown to him, he was beginning the process of what? Of Hatzalah. Would you say that he has to pay?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
Does anybody want to defend the position that he's free from payment? Just in one line.
Hatzalah.
Hatzalah, exactly. It's an act
when he
of...
broke the window...
Joe, you get what you said.
The window was
Okay,
Geneva.
before I know it, you're going to throw some rotten apples at me. 1 second. Let's 1 second. It's rotten chickens. I wouldn't mind, actually. I'll take a rotten chicken. Okay, but here's the rub of it. Is this an act of Hatzalah?
No, it's Geneva.
It is.
It's Geneva.
It is or is it not? Is it an act of mazik? Again, not Geneva. We're not up to the Geneva. The Geneva is going to come after he breaks down the door. He wants him to pay for breaking down the door. Is it an act of mazik or is it an act of Hatzalah?
but he changes it.
Well, let me ask you a question. We're both sides. A very simple gvirotai v'ravotai. Excuse me. What would be if this man knew that there was a baby in the back, and he would come to a posek and say to him, Rebbe, tell me, Torah Hiva Lilman and Yitzhak, should I break down the door and save the baby, or should I not break down the door and let the baby perish? Nobody doubts that the psak is crystal clear. We feel very badly about this Mercedes-Benz, who's brand new, the door is going to... But on the other hand, we got to save the baby. So clearly, the act of breaking the door is an act of Hatzalah. I would submit to you that in this case, even the Ramban would agree that he doesn't have to pay. Now I'm ready for you, Joe.
What was his kavanah?
Let's ask the following question. What is the determining factor in defining someone's action? Is it kavanah or is it the action itself?
Yeah.
It's a machlokes between Rabbah and Rav. It's the last source on your page. Take a look. The Gemara Menachos, and with this we'll conclude, brings down the following. Okay, you know what? I'm going to just summarize it. I'll pay. You can read it inside as I'm summarizing.
What happened in the first case in practice with the lady and her chicken?
I think the Bezin said that he doesn't have to pay. He doesn't have to pay the 10 grand. Okay? Let's get back to this case. What happens? Now, if a man goes fishing on Shabbos, that's not a good thing. Not recommended. What's that called? Anybody know in the 39? Seder. Excellent. Seder. Seder. Good. It was a strange case that the Gemara addresses. I didn't make up the case, you can't blame me. That a baby was drowning in the river, and a guy is fishing. And guess what he pulls up in his net? Not just fish, but he pulls up a baby. Rabbi say, who could believe that the Gemara was written 16 centuries ago and has our case? I'm sorry, I get a little emotional about this. It's mind-boggling. So the question is, if he did it b'shogeg, does he bring a korban chatas? He, on the one hand, he violated Meleches Tzeidah. On the other hand, he had no idea that he was going to save a baby. His intention was to save a fish, if you follow what I mean. And instead he saved a baby and a fish. The question there is, does he have to bring, anybody know what you have to bring to the Beis HaMikdash if you violate Shabbos b'shogeg? No chatas. So take a look at the Gemara. The Gemara says, he didn't know about it, he did know about it, the Gemara vacillates back and forth. Hella dogim, if all he has in his net is what? Fish, then his chayv has to bring a korban chatas. But what happens if he also fished out the baby and saved the baby? Rabba Omar Patur, Rav Omar Chayav. So the Gemara explains. Rabba Omar Patur, what? Zil Basar Ma'asav. Rav Omar Chayav, Zil Basar Machshavto. David, what's going on? No questions. Sorry. I need an answer. What is going on? Who can just present the Gemara to me? Simple pshat. Pras, pash, pshat.
Maisa versus Kavanah.
What do you say?
Maisa versus Kavanah.
Okay, so let's say Rabba holds Potter. Why? Azli and Basar? Maisa. What's the Maisa? Maisa Solo. Rabba says, Azli and Basar Kavana. What was his intention?
Fishing.
Say that he's fishing. Good. So now I ask you the following question. A man breaks down the door of a car, of an automobile, in order to steal it, in order to damage it. But it's an absolutely necessary act, he doesn't know it, of Atzal. Do we look at his Maisa, or do we look at his Machshava? Just 1 second, David. Yeah. You know, listen, you know, you're taking away my Geshmakim. It's not fair. Wait, let it sink in on both sides. This is like seventh heaven, I'm telling you. You can make a Birchas Hanenim on this, I'm telling you. Just enjoy it. David, enjoy it. That's how I say, enjoy it. Then slug it up, but just enjoy it.
But it's not the only fact, the Rabbi, he actually did make a decision to save as well, in that particular case. Later.
No, but that was later. That was a little bit later.
But he does.
Okay, I don't know if retroactively we could credit him for that. Give him brownie points. But what I want to know is it an act of Hatzalah or is it an act of Mazid? And truth be told, it really depends upon the Machlokes Rabbah and Rava. If you take the position of Rabbah, who says Potter, let's define the act. You're not chayav if it's Seder. You don't have to bring a Korban Chatas. This is not Seder. This is Hatzalah. Anyone in that position would be obligated by virtue of Mitzvah Babi to what? To fish the fish and save the baby at the same time. Potter, Rava Amar Chayav. Says the Gemara, why does Rava say Chayav? Zil Basar Machshavto. What was his intention? He was fishing. He was guilty, as far as his kavanah is concerned, of an act of Seder. How do we pass? And our Ganav, who broke down the door, is holding his breath, you know, wherever he is, because he wants to know, how do we paskin about a person who fishes on Shabbos and accidentally, inadvertently saves a baby in the net of the fish? Does he have to bring a chatos according to Rav like Rava, or is he potter like Rava? And the Rambam is in Hilchos Shkogos, Perik Beis, Halacha Tesvav. Yes, you guessed it. We paskin like Rava. Ha pores mitzuda lalos dogim in ayam bishkoga vehela tinok im adogim bein sheshama shetava tinok, he was aware of the tinok, bein shelo shama, he was unaware of the tinok. Hoil vehela tinok. What does he mean in the Rambam when he says hoil vehela tinok? It's a Ma'aseh Hatzalah. Let's look at his action. He didn't even know there was a baby that was drowning. Potter michatos afal bishlo hoisa kavanoso elolot masik midvash. The Rambam paskins like Rabbah, and I come back to our Ganav and I say to him, Yashikoyach, you saved the baby, you're potter.